All right, so positive and negative integers. Okay, so let me just give a new one. Okay, the first question you're going to ask is, what is the biggest integer? And the biggest integer means the number without the positive or negative attached to it. So is 5 bigger or is 15 bigger? 15 is bigger. So number 1, which is the biggest integer? That's the first question. So it is 15. Now, the biggest integer wins the sign. So, if 15 is the biggest integer, what comes before 15? Positive. That means your answer is going to be positive. Then if what comes before your integers are both the same, you add the integers together. If they're different, you subtract them. So if it's a negative and a negative, you're going to add the integers together. If it's a positive and a positive, you're going to add the integers together. And if it's a positive and negative, you're going to subtract the integers. So we know this is positive, and then right before my 5 I have a negative, and right before my 15 I have a positive, so I know that I subtract the integers. 15 minus 5 is 10. This one, biggest integer wins the sign, so my answer is negative. I have a negative and a negative, so I add my integers together. It's negative 20. This one, biggest integer wins the sign. My number that's the biggest integer is a positive, and then I have a positive and a positive, so I add my integers together. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Now, there's another thing that they do, and it is, I don't know if you saw it today, but at some point you'll see it. It's when you have a negative and a negative right next to each other with a parentheses in between. In that case, what you're going to do, you're going to circle the two negatives and you're going to make it into a positive. So a negative with a parentheses negative makes it into an addition sign or a positive sign. Now you're going to take the same technique that I showed you here. Biggest integer wins the sign, so this is now a plus or a positive. So my answer is going to be positive, and then I have a positive and a negative, so I subtract my integers, and it's positive 10. And then I'll just go over absolute value again, just because we had talked about that before I started the video. So all absolute value means is the number of jumps away from 0. So for 5, how many jumps away from 0 is 5? It's 5. Negative 5, how many jumps? 5. If you had 3/4 or negative 3/4, it's still 3/4 jump away from 0, and so is negative 3/4. And then if you had a decimal 5.3, how many jumps away from that, from 0 is it? 5.3. And then if it was negative 5.3, how many jumps away? 5.3. Let me go over a couple of the positive and negatives again. So if you had positive 10 plus 5, negative 10 plus 5, positive 10 minus 5, 10 minus negative 5, and negative 10 minus 5. We would use our strategy. Biggest integer wins the sign. The biggest integer is 10, so my answer is going to be negative. I have a negative and a positive, so I subtract. 10 minus 5 is 5, so my answer is negative 5. This is a positive. That's my biggest integer. I have a positive and a negative, so I subtract, but my answer is going to be positive because biggest integer wins the sign, and the biggest integer is 10. This one, I know that I have to circle this, make it into plus. Biggest integer wins the sign. Biggest integer is 10. So my answer is positive. And then I have 10 plus 5, 15. Biggest integer wins the sign. It's negative. And then I have a negative and a negative, so it's negative 15. Another way to look at this, if you want to check your answers, is bank account. So I have negative $10 in my bank account, and I deposit $5. How much money do I have in my bank account now? I still have negative $5. I have $10 in my bank account, and I withdraw $5. How much do I have in my account? 5. I have negative $10 in my bank account, and I spend $5 more in my bank account. How much do I have? Negative 15. And then this one, you just have to do the circle. Any questions on that, Eli?
No.
Okay.
But I have a question about a different thing.
Yeah, tell me.
So if you were to do like negative 3 times 6, would that just be 6 divided by 3?
Negative 3 times 6. Okay, are you guys doing multiplication of negative and positive numbers? Okay.
Yeah, but it's like really small.
Okay.
Like negative 3 times 6.
All right, so when you're multiplying or dividing positive and negative integers, here's how you're going to remember it. If two people are having a conversation and both of them are negative people, they're going to have a positive experience. If two positive people are having a conversation and they're happy with being positive, they're going to have a positive experience. If you have one negative person and one positive person having a conversation, they're going to have a negative experience. So for this one, you have a negative and a positive. That is going to be negative number. And then 6 times 3 is 18. So it's negative 18. Same thing with division. If you had negative 18 divided by 3, you have a negative and a positive. So you're going to do 18 minus 3 is 6. And the answer is negative because it's a negative and a positive. Make sense?
Yep.
Okay.